Has this happened to you? It was going so well, then suddenly a fast attack clipped you once and you immediately died? Well, that shouldn't be happening, and if it is, the game is teaching you that you don't have enough health. Elden Ring isn't meant to be this unforgiving experience where you make no mistakes and fail if you fumble a single time. No, you need to be allowed to mess up a little in order to learn, in this game even more than in From's previous ones. Let's talk about the mechanics and philosophy behind health in games, the reasons why having enough of it is so important to helping you learn fights, useful tricks for healing properly in Elden Ring, and some loose guidelines for how much you should have so it can help you finish more things on your first try. Vigor is one of the Tarnished's 8 main attributes in Elden Ring. You can directly improve it by leveling up, and it increases your health. So what does health actually do in a video game? It's a stupid question, right? I would bet many of you haven't thought about it much, as the answer is apparent, but in order to explain why it's so important, I first need to put this into words. Health is a defining characteristic of your existence in a digital world that governs how many mistakes you can make before suffering a progress setback. It's a measure of how imperfect you're allowed to be as a player. The less health you have, the more perfectly you're forced to play so you don't lose momentum. Due to the nature of the game, Elden Ring's world is one in which making mistakes is very likely, so to play effectively, you must be allowed to make those mistakes rather than having no room for error. Many games let you heal using items. In Elden Ring, a successful heal consists of 2 parts, generating safety and then committing to the heal. Also, just a quick note, you can pouch your flasks of Crimson or Cerulean Tears, which can make activating the heal instant, letting you avoid cycling your down D-pad slot. Drinking your flask is a short animation lock you commit to in order to gain health. During it, you can't attack, defend yourself, or do anything except walk around a bit. Unlike many games where healing is instant, the commitment here necessitates only drinking your flask when there's a safe time to do so. In other words, panic healing is dangerous, so while it's easier said than done, try to stay calm. If you try to heal with an attack headed your way, you'll be struck out of your heal, the same way you would be hit out of your attack if you tried to hit a foe at the wrong moment. In fact, this is exactly how you should think of your flask in Elden Ring. If you can attack safely, then you can usually heal safely too. If you can't attack safely, you should wait to drink your flask until you get a better chance. With this in mind, if you want to heal during a tense fight, there are 3 main ways to generate enough safety to do that. The first way is making space. Against less aggressive enemies, simply run backwards away from them, or roll a few times so you can finish a heal and regain control before they get close. Enemies with range attacks need to be considered, and against them, it's usually best to hide behind something that can cover you first. The second way is simply finishing the fight. If there are only 1 or 2 enemies left and you can safely kill whoever's remaining, stay calm and kill them first. Then heal when there's no one left to bother you. Enemies can't threaten you or take any actions if they don't exist. The last method is to heal as a counter to an incoming attack. Enemies in Elden Ring usually play by the same animation rules as the Tarnished, so if you dodge a big animation they committed to, they have to take time to recover from that before they can move again. Heal during this window. This last way to secure a heal is one that you'll need to use the most against truly threatening enemies who maintain pressure on you and don't let you just walk backwards or quickly kill them. In other words, most bosses will nudge you into healing using this technique. As an aside, if an enemy is currently doing a long, more cinematic animation like a phase change, a story moment in the middle of a fight, or even slowly getting off the ground after being critical hit or backstabbed, you can often heal during that too. Okay, so now we know how healing works. I want to touch on what healing means too, because understanding this is what defines why having enough base HP is so necessary, and it's what makes this video make sense. If your health is a rough limit of how many mistakes you can make, healing is undoing those mistakes, correcting the state of a battle so you can keep fighting. Basically, healing increases your effective health, while your health bar is a container for storing that mistake buffer. Now let's tie it all together. Imagine you're fighting a powerful enemy and it immediately kills you, draining your entire life bar in 1 hit. Well, congratulations, what's happened there is all your flask charges are now completely useless. This is why getting one-shotted is so bad in this game. This is why having enough vigor matters. Skimping on HP carries a massive consequence because it means you're denying yourself a huge amount of resources you already have, and could have accessed if you just lived through the hit. Not only are you dying, all the flasks you're carrying are dead weight now that don't actually do anything. Now consider the opposite. If you can absorb 1 or 2 mistakes but heal through them, then you essentially have as many health bars as you have flask charges to fill them with. The obvious conclusion is that if a single hit ends your attempt, then you have to play flawlessly in order to achieve anything. This is not a sustainable strategy because you're a human with human reaction times, and that's why you will not do this. You will level your vigor, you will have enough HP to make minor mistakes, and you'll clear areas, fights, and bosses in many fewer attempts because you'll be letting yourself use the resources you've already got. You know what, Rogue? I actually don't want to level Vigor. I watched YouTubers no damage run bosses, and I want to do that instead, which is totally representative of a real playthrough, and definitely not a choreographed creative work that took crazy amounts of time to accomplish. I want to level my damage stats, getting one-shotted on fights 50 times in a row. Okay, now I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life, but I can tell you that you're hurting your enjoyment of the game, particularly bosses, if you decide to play this way. It's not for any subjective reason or opinion, really. It's just because of how the human brain usually works with memory and pattern recognition. If you bear with me, you'll see how pumping Vigor will actually help you achieve that no damage run even faster than players who stubbornly leave themselves fragile on their main save file. When you die to a boss in Elden Ring, they will stop attacking you or your summons. This is a bad thing. If your goal is to learn a fight, the boss not putting attacks on the screen is the last thing you want. I cannot stress this enough. There's nothing more destructive to your ability to memorize patterns and understand movesets than not being shown the attacks and moves anymore. Furthermore, if your goal is to just clear the fight, and you're willing to achieve that by any means necessary like summons, magic, ailments, and so on, then being able to make mistakes is also important since progression is your only concern here. If you're learning a boss over a sustained series of attempts, you need to see as many of its attacks as possible in as uninterrupted a flow as possible. Dying to a fight will force you to run back to the boss, during which time you're not looking at its moveset. This will slow your learning significantly. Do you know what won't do that? Comfortably absorbing a hit or two so you can actually inject your reserve health from flasks into your health bar and keep seeing attacks by staying in the fight. This will help you learn much, much faster, see more moves, see those moves more quickly, and most importantly, try your own moves. Defeating a boss isn't just about avoiding death at their hand, it's also about inflicting damage on them. How can you do that when you don't know where you can slip some damage in, when you don't get to test for gaps that let you weave your own attacks through? How do you discover those gaps? By taking risks, and risks imply mistakes. Mistakes and risks are philosophically adjacent. They're both player-side events that increase how volatile a fight is. In other words, both making a mistake and taking a risk make a battle more unstable, pushing it closer to failure. Meanwhile, playing safely and flawlessly increases a fight's stability and makes it less volatile. So you would think you want to play safely and not rock the boat. Yes and no. This ties into needing to attack, which I just mentioned. For mages or archers, your ability to fight safely is limited by your expendable resources too, so at some point you may need to close the distance anyway. The main problem with playing too safely is that it doesn't let you take the risk you need in order to thoroughly understand the windows of opportunity an enemy gives you. Following logically, a player who knows an enemy will kill them if they make any mistakes will be risk-averse and attack less than they should when they haven't already memorized a fight. Besides, risks can really pay off. You have to attack back eventually, and it might as well be sooner rather than later. This is especially true in Elden Ring due to its stagger or posture break system. Aggression against enemies, particularly with heavy attacks, will eventually cause foes to crumple, arguably buying you more safety and time to use items too, in addition to the critical hit. That aside, elements like bleed and frost trigger from unrelenting pressure, so if you're unable to apply that pressure confidently while running an elemental build-up playstyle, then you're not getting the full benefit from that playstyle. For example, bleed is very good against everything in this game that's susceptible to it, so losing that is a big sacrifice for fast-attacking characters whose goal is to stack blood loss. Meanwhile, if you have enough HP to absorb a hit or two, and enough fast charges to undo a few of those mistakes, you're on track to take those risks and to be aggressive, and see when you can progress the enemy's health bar. Finally, if what you want is to practice a boss until you can learn its tendencies and moveset, being able to absorb those hits will teach you the fight quicker so you can get to that state of perfection much sooner. The players you see who kill bosses without taking a hit have fought that enemy many times, and used their health bars to buy its combat data over many attempts. Only then do they commit to recording that perfect run, and they probably keep multiple save files. The concept is simple. If bosses are one-shotting you, raise Vigor until they don't. If you want more defense, consider wearing armor that guards against their attack types, be they physical, magic, holy, or other. If you're someone who needs general numbers to feel good, in Limgrave a comfortable baseline I recommend is enough Vigor to have 800 HP. That should let you absorb 2 or 3 hits from bosses, giving you enough health to make some mistakes in the open world too. In terms of FP or mana, I keep mine at 90 to 100, but if I were a character who used magic as a main damage source, I would want at least 150 earlier in order to feel okay. The thing about mages is that since mana is your primary attack resource, if your max FP is too small, when you drink a blue flask you'll actually be losing a lot of the excess that overflows, wasting it. That's several extra spells from a single flask that you just don't get. This applies to health for all characters too, but for casters especially, as you collect more sacred tears and increase the amount your flask sends to your bar, it becomes more important to increase your FP so you can get the most value you can from a single drink. One last reason to get Vigor is associated with multiplayer, so for some players this won't be relevant. If you do plan to play co-op or PvP though, you should keep some things in mind. As a host, if you die, both you and your co-op allies immediately lose, and they will be kicked back to their worlds. As a phantom, your resource pools and flask charges are severely reduced when you're summoned, since you're just barely corporeal when in someone else's world. When a host summons you, the world will scale to make enemies more durable, so having enough health to keep helping your ally really matters. Both of these things make Vigor even more important in co-op, since now your health pool affects not just yourself, but another player's experience too. Be mindful of your fellow Tarnished, and if you're a host, try not to die before your phantoms do, because if you do, the fun stops for everybody. To say nothing of being beset by evil invading players when just trying to enjoy the world with a buddy. If you and your teammate have a sudden PvP situation thrust upon you, having enough health to meaningfully contest the invader is going to be something you're very glad for. If you made it to the end, you're a hero. This was a lot of concepts and I still left some things out. All that said, I hope this helped. If this convinced at least one Tarnished not to be so fragile that their attempts at a boss last 6 seconds before they have to wait through a loading screen and a run back, I'll be happy. And if it didn't, I forgive you anyway, because I have a dirty secret of my own, and it's that when I first played Bloodborne, which was my first From game, I rarely leveled Vitality and only pumped skill to beyond its soft cap, taking out some bosses entirely with throwing knives just because I thought knives were cool. Don't do what I do, but if you really want to, do it in Bloodborne where the dodge window is massive and easy to avoid damage with. Either that or equip a quick step knife in Elden Ring, I don't know. In any case, I'll say goodbye here. Thank you so much for watching, good luck in the lands between, and may the night keep you safe.